I remember days they used to laugh at me. Used to show them on my records talking casually. Used to say it was a passion on my path to be. Then they told me that I couldn't, so I had to be. Tell me what they really think about it now. Used to hate it, but I guarantee they're proud. Had to do it just to show them that I could, yeah. Now I finally think I took it where I should, yeah. Had jokes on you and now you're on and laughing. I did a whole lot of winning. Look, it came from a passion. I see a whole lot of no ones I could see now in public. And that may think a lot of things, man. At least think something, now you the judge. And now tell me where you ended up, yeah. Look, I bet it was a simple job, yeah. Look, I went and took a different route, yeah. Look, that's why my life is different now. Back in my feelings, look, when I wasn't so gifted and I was learning to do this, and all I heard were the critics, and I don't blame you for that shit. Look, I was way out the basis, but I just needed some talent so I could wait this to greatness. Oh yeah, you ain't ever think this, no, no, no. Stop me while I started, homie, whoa, whoa, whoa. Now this shit settled, it's go better and better, but I'll always remember, yeah, yeah.
Edgar Zavala is on that one. What's happening, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great, Mike. How about yourself, man?
Yeah, jamming over here, man. Building that one, and what building that one means is that we build all of our clients and all the people that are on our shows. We build them and get them out there further, faster, and I love it because it's not just my mission now that I'm concerned with. It's everybody else's, and it's just phenomenal. So, but glad to have you here, and also want to thank you for being a client at that one. Means the world to me that people trust us to work with them and attach ourselves to their mission. And I love what your mission is. And let's start off, man. Like, what are you working on right now? Like, let's talk about that mission that you're on.
Yeah, so right now I'm currently building a multiple 6 to 7 figure agency right now, full of a bunch of leaders, a bunch of brokers who have access to licenses and contracts and resources that can help people retire properly, create pensions, just build wealth, pay less in taxes, things of that nature, and just, again, protect people's hard-earned money. So that's my main mission right now, is just coaching, teaching, mentoring, and helping other people get the right tools.
And then, so who are the clients that you work with? What's that avatar look like?
Yeah, so I mean, it could be anybody from, I sit with people who are in their early 20s all the way to people in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s. Obviously, my main focus is helping people like the boomers, right? You know, right now it's these next 5 years, we're in the biggest wealth transfer in all of American history. I think it's over $87 trillion is exchanging hands as we speak. And all these baby boomers, they want to retire, but you know, they're going to pay a lot in taxes, or they don't have enough to retire, or they don't have enough to fall back on, and they're terrified. So we're trying to attack that market. We want to help those individuals, but also we want to set up the next youth for financial success. You know, Mike, they say smart people learn from their own mistakes, wise people learn from others. And what I've seen is that when I work with the older clientele, it's a lot of I should have, would have, could have kind of you know, conversations on what they wish they would have done. And with the younger folks, when I talk to them in their early 20s or even early 30s, it's kind of like, it'll sort itself out. I got time. My finances will just magically fix itself. So I'm trying to teach the younger generation, hey, prepare now. And I'm trying to teach the older generation, hey, protect your nest egg while you can.
Yeah. I like it. You know, there's all different types of people. I'm the type of person, you know, I've invested in the past, of course, but my main investment now and over the last few years is just investing in myself and my business. What order should people take their money? I have an idea on this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. But what order should people, like? Should they take money right away and put it in investments, or is there other things that you should start with first?
Yeah. So number one, what I would say is, what I highly recommend, especially what I do with a lot of my clients, is number one, let's budget. Let's create a budgeting sheet. Let's just see where our money's going. If there's any holes in the bucket, if we're leaking anything, because sometimes people, what they do is, you know, they earn an income and then they create a certain lifestyle around that income. And majority of the time, you know, obviously, if you're not a business owner, if you're not an entrepreneur, your whole lifestyle is based off this one income. It's either 9 to 5 or salary, which, guess what? It could be gone like this tomorrow, you know, which is pretty scary for most people when they get laid off. So what happens is people get comfortable earning a certain income, and then they're spending, they're buying, and they're buying a bunch of liabilities instead of assets. And then when you think about it, you might be making good money, but when we calculate the numbers, hey, you're saving like a fourth of what you're actually making, and the rest is just going to bills and expenses and debt and liability. So number one is let's just budget. Usually what I do is I create a free budgeting sheet for people so they can see real numbers. Wow.
Clarity. Yeah.
Wake up call. So from there we create certain habits, and then depending on where they're at, I'll wait a couple months to follow back up with them and see, okay, now that you have a good amount saved up, how can you make that money work for you? Because we know, Mike, I know you know this out of anybody, that the wealthy don't work for money. they make money work for them. So let's teach people how to make their money work for them. Once their money's working for them, okay, now how can you create those habits, those skill sets, and now change your mindset to make you make more money for yourself and don't
Yeah.
just go out in that job. So
Well,
that's my motto.
well, you're working with some 20-year-olds sometimes in their 20s, right? And one of the biggest things that I wish I would have did, and now I look back and somebody said to me one time, like, what would you have done differently?
Yeah.
Well, what I see is when people start to make money, right, and they're in their 20s, they start to make more money. They increase their lifestyle with that
Sure.
versus staying where they are and then getting the money that's coming in and then structure the money effectively.
For sure.
And most people don't do that. They just up their lifestyle with the money, and then they get into this hole. And by the time they hit their 30s and 40s, they're like trapped.
Yeah.
And that's no life to live in, man. I've been there. And so the order that I think, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. The order I think you should take your money is you should invest in yourself first and increase your skills, your communication skills, your network, masterminds, coaching. Invest in yourself, because when you invest in yourself, there's infinite return. There's no other investment out there that has infinite returns.
1,000%.
Right. So that's why I always say that first. Then invest in your business. If you have a business.
Absolutely.
If you're working for someone else, just, you need to invest in what you're doing. Okay. To increase your earning capabilities.
Yeah.
And I think investing in your business is like a snowball effect. And then when you have surplus cash after you invest in yourself and your business, then invest in assets. Other assets, right? Like whether you're a stock market person, whether you're a real estate person, whether you're a life insurance person, or diversify, whatever you want to do, crypto, whatever. But that's the order that I see that works the best, because you can't get an increase in freed up cash to invest until you invest in yourself and your business.
Yeah,
Do you agree with that?
No, I agree. I agree 100%. And, number one, it all comes down to mindset, right? Because majority of the people that I sit with, they're either they're caught in that mindset. They like the safety. They like stability. Maybe they have a family and they're just too afraid to go out of their comfort zone because they have something that provides and puts a roof over their head. So majority of the people that I'm sitting with is those individuals that they're not thinking like you and me. They're not thinking, hey, I need to escape the rat race, or I need to escape my 9 to 5, or I need to escape my salary lifestyle. They live in fear, unfortunately, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know that fear is just false evidence appearing real. And when you live in fear, you're just afraid of failure. And fail is just first attempt in learning. Most people don't want to learn anymore. Because society teaches us, hey, if you mess up, that's a bad thing. So everybody's in their comfort zone. So I'm trying to, number one, just give people the basic foundation on save, budget, whatever you have, then invest in other tools. And once you feel a little bit more comfortable, you have more of a nest egg, hey, maybe try other things. But absolutely, I'm with you 100%, Mike. I was there. At one point in time, I was making good income. I was saving good money. I was paying my bills. I have good credit. And then I said, well, let me look around. Like majority of my coworkers when I was working, they're all in their 50s and 60s and they're still working. And I said, is this it? Is it for me? And then it wasn't until I got in rooms with other people who were thinking much bigger. And they're saying, hey, no, like what you want to invest is in your skill set, is in your mindset. And that's when I said, whoa. And I realized I was the big fish in a little pond when I started having conversation with those individuals. And I love having conversations with people who think that way, who are like, no, like work on your skill set, work on your mindset, because that's uncapped earning potential. That's infinite earning potential,
Yeah, when you're in that environment where you're that big fish and you get these big ideas or you're learning that other people aren't. Did you ever get the situation where you felt like you were crazy, something's wrong with you? Like, why am I thinking this way? And everybody else is like, no, dude, this is the way it is. We work here, you move up in this company and you stay here, this and that, right? And you think you're crazy, right? Yeah. So I want to ask you about that, but let me tell you I got the 10X rule somewhere. The 10X rule was one of the first books that I really caught me. It wasn't about thinking bigger. It wasn't about 10X your goals and visions. It was when you think big and you're in an environment where other people aren't, and then they make comments and say things to you and it makes you feel like you're crazy. I used to feel like that. I thought I was loony. Like, what's wrong with me? Am I delusional?
Yeah.
But what it said in there, Grant Cardone said this one thing that really caught me. It was, you're not the crazy one. The people around you are just confused.
Yeah. 100%.
And when I realized that, I was like, oh, okay. I just need to push the pedal down. I'm on the right track. Push the pedal down, and then those people can do what they want to do. They're just confused. I'm clear. I'm not crazy. Yeah. Did you ever feel like that?
No, 100%. I mean, it got to a certain point, and there's a lot of people who potentially gonna watch this and be like, man, I called Edgar crazy at one point in time where I was asking him why. What's crazy, Mike, is that people say first they ask you why you do it, then once you make it, they ask you how you made it.
Yeah.
But by the time you make it, guess what? It might be a little too late for them, right? Yeah. So I'd rather escape now than wait a long time, in the future. But what I would say is I got in that point in time in my life where I was in between from what society told me was the right thing to do, and what was I indoctrinated into? Because we know it's indoctrination, Mike, right? From a young age.
Programming. Yeah.
It's programming, right? When you're a kid, kids aren't afraid of failing. They fall, they break things, they break their bones, they get hurt and whatnot, they get back up. It's like when a kid falls, he doesn't say, you know what, I guess it's not for me. I'm not gonna walk anymore. He just
Right.
keeps going. But I got to a certain point where I was starting to get deprogrammed, and I started looking at my environment, and it's kind of like in the Matrix. You see the zero and the ones,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, this can't be it. And one thing that hit me was like, look, there's houses, and I know it's not all about money, right? It's not materialistic while we're here, but there's houses that are worth 10 million, 20 million, $30 million plus. There's cars that are worth the same as a house. And I said, hold up, I guess this 9 to 5 thing, this salary thing is not gonna allow me to get those types of tools or those types of materialistic items. And that's just kind of a measurement of what's possible. And then I started looking at my coworkers and all my friends, and I was having these conversations, and I started realizing, I was like, whoa, they're just stuck. And I'm starting to separate myself from them. It's like the black sheep, And when you're the black sheep, people start mocking you. They start saying weird things. And I had coworkers in their 50s and 60s calling me crazy for trying to do something different. They're like, you have a good job. Why would you mess it up for something for X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, because I don't want your life, brother.
Yeah.
I don't want to end
Well,
up in a
I
situation.
call this the hater cycle. So they mock you, they criticize you at first, they question you, right? And then if you keep going, that's the first part of the cycle. Then if you keep going, they may ignore you for a little bit, and then if you keep going and you start having some progress, they start
Absolutely.
paying attention and get interested,
Yeah,
and then you keep going from there, and then you make it, whatever
absolutely.
that is,
I
and
say,
then
my haters keep me grinding, right?
yeah, and then
Like,
they say I told you about him or I told you about her. That's the
yeah,
cycle. I've seen it over and over and over again. Hey, I told you about that guy.
yeah.
But you got to keep going to get that through that cycle. You can't stop when they're criticizing and mocking.
No,
And
100.
the other mindset too is that people get in this mindset of just making it to the next month. I just got to make it to the next month. I got to just make it to the next month.
Exactly.
And that's okay if you have a big vision, like, hey, I know there's steps to this and I got to make it to the next step. I got to make it to the next step, but not, I got to make it to the next month. I got to make it to the next month. And then you do that over and over and over again. And you don't have a bigger vision of what you're building towards. Right.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
say call that a lot of people are surviving. That survivor mindset.
Yeah.
I said, look, how about we stop just surviving and we start thriving instead?
But
You
there's
know?
no such thing, dude, bro. There's no such thing as just surviving. If you're
Yeah.
not thriving, you're dying.
Yeah.
That's what people get mixed up. They think just survive. I don't need to thrive. I'll just survive. You don't survive without thriving, because if you're not, you have a flat graph. That's just
No.
what people think surviving is.
Mm-hmm.
But that
Yeah.
all flat graphs fall because of gravity, circumstances, economy, whatever. Gravity pulls it down. So you have to have an upward trajectory graph to
Yeah.
survive nowadays.
Yeah. Well, they say
Right?
you're right. They say if you're not growing, you're dying. I mean, think about it. Our mind is a powerful tool, and if you're not working on it, our brain is a muscle. Our mind is a muscle, and if you're not working on it, then you're not getting any better. And if you're not getting better, that's how people get anxiety, depression. They get upset. It's kind of crazy, Mike, when you think about it. When you look at people who are much older and they just did what they were told, right? Unfortunately, they just coasted and they did what society told them. They get to a point where we've seen this, Mike. People are older and they upset. They're just angry. They just
Resentful, yeah.
they're grumpy, and that's all because it was they didn't go for it. And I tell people all the time, like, you said that that hater circle, those people who are always making fun of you, or they may call you out when you're on your journey for growth. Where it's kind of like, one day in the future, one day, are you gonna allow those people who had a certain mindset of you or a certain depiction of you stop you from reaching your true potential? I mean, at the end of the day, I put like this right here, Mike. No one really cares about anybody besides themselves to a certain degree. No one's really thinking about you 24/7. So just might as well go for it. And when people say things to you, it's not about you. Don't take things personally. That's something that I read from the Four Agreements. Don't take things personally. That's just projection.
Mhm.
They're uncomfortable with you going after it because you're showing signs of something that they're afraid of doing.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
100%. All right, bro. So what's your story, man? Everybody's got a story. What's your story?
Yeah, so number one, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, raised there all my life by a single mother. I come from an immigrant family, so I'm first generation, and I
From where? From where?
from Honduras.
Okay.
Honduras, yeah. And my mother, she works super, super hard to keep a roof over my head, to put food on the table, to provide. And the one thing that I respect about my mother is that she's just a hustler. She has crazy work ethic and she gets it done and she never complains. I've never seen her complain in my entire life. And growing up in Brooklyn as a young kid, I always saw her working real hard. But then I started realizing as a young kid, hey, hard work doesn't equate to, a fruitfulness, because we barely had food on the table. it was tough at times or whatnot. And as a kid, you know, kids say, "Hey, mommy, daddy, I want this, I want this," and they're like, "We can't have this," right? I was a lot of no, 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 no. And it wasn't until, you know, sometimes my mom, because she was working extra shifts, she had to take me to her job with her, and she was working at hotels in Manhattan, right? That's where she works. And I was seeing my mother working in these hotels. She would get a list of like 30 rooms or like 35 rooms, or I don't know how many rooms. It was a long list. In one day, she would have to clean all those rooms in like in a day. And my mother would look at that list, not even bat a single eye, get the right tools, the equipment, get after it. And as a kid, that made an impression on me. And I'm like, wow, like my mom has crazy. I think that's where I get it from. Right? I tell my mom all the time, I get my work ethic from her because she gets upset at me. She's like, Edgar, stop working so hard, right? Relax. I'm like, mom, it's not. That's from you. But you know, growing up in Brooklyn, I wanted to be a good kid. I just wanted to have good grades to make it easy for my mother because she was already like she had a lot to deal with. And you know, I said, man, growing up in Brooklyn, there's only a couple options to get out of there. Number one, you got to be some type of artist. That just wasn't me. I can't sing or rap to save my life, right? Number two, you got to be some type of athlete. Now, I was a baseball player growing up in high school, but I got into sporting a little bit late. You know how Mike, some kids, or some parents put their kids into sports at a young age and they become like
Yeah.
professionals.
Yeah.
For me, I got in a little bit late. I got in around freshman year of high school, and I got really good. And I was a shortstop and a second baseman in growing up in high school, and I was a captain of my baseball team. And then I actually almost got scouted, but when I went to go get scouted to get a scholarship at that time, all the scouts were only looking for pitchers. And me, I can't throw 90 miles per hour, right, to save my life either. So I was like, well, that's down the drain. And the last one is, hey, you might become a statistic if you don't figure it out. You end up in jail or in prison, or you end up unfortunately.
Did you ever get pulled into any or attempting to pull into any of the gangs or anything like that?
No, so I try to stay away from all that because growing up in my area where I grow up, I would see the other end of it, of being in that lifestyle, whether people are on the corner like drugged up and just you could just tell they were on a lot of stuff, or you'd see a lot of cop cars and a lot of yellow tape. And as a kid, I would walk by that stuff, you know, and I'm like, you know, why would I want to be inside the yellow tape, or why would I want to be behind a cop car?
Or
Why
contributing
would
to that?
Yeah, exactly. So it just makes
Yeah.
no sense, and it didn't serve me. So I said, I got to do something. I got to get out of Brooklyn. A lot of people are comfortable where they are. You know, they say, Mike, hey, if you want to be successful, just get out of your hometown. Just leave. I knew there was nothing there for me besides my mom and some friends. So I enlisted in the Marines, and I said, I got to go. So right after high school, I shipped out to boot camp. I talked to the Marine recruiters behind my mother's back because I knew she was not going to be supportive of that. And shipped out, went to the Marines. And I did 4 years in the Marine Corps, traveled the world, went to different countries, and it was a good time. Met a lot of cool people in the Marine.
What did the Marines do for you?
Yeah,
Being in
so
the
in the
Marines.
Marine Corps, number one, it taught me discipline. It taught me, you know, how to time management. It developed a lot of my leadership skills already in me, you know, because it's a nature versus nurture, right?
Right.
Nature is kind of like, you know, what's already in you. Nurture is what you get from your environment. And I was always a leader innately, but the Marine Corps just made me, you know, bring that out even more because I had to lead platoons, lead other Marines. We call it junior Marines. And it also taught me how to take care of my body, you know, and it also taught me how to just communicate with people, how to have conversations. Because if you want to be a leader, you had to talk to all types of people, extroverts, introverts, A types, you know, A type personalities, people who are timid, people who are, you know, they want to challenge you. And that's what it did. And it also taught me how to pretty much, you know, gain a skill set. Because in the Marine Corps, I was a diesel mechanic. And before the Marine Corps, I never picked up a tool in my entire life, you know?
Yeah.
So it taught me how to work and fix on machines and work on machinery. And that's something that I'll forever be grateful for because that allowed me to then transition into my next career, which is a wind turbine technician, working on those big turbines, you know, 300 feet, 500 foot up in the air.
Oh, really? Tell me
So,
about that, man. Tell me about that. So wait a minute. So you get out of the Marines and you're like, okay, what do I do next? Right?
yeah, so it's scary.
When you're in the Marines, you're identifying as a Marine,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You
Yeah.
attach your identity to that. So when you got out, did you have a little period where you're like, who am I? What do I need to do?
Oh
Or
yeah, 100%. So this is the thing that I tell people because personally, I've seen this myself. I've seen a lot of people where they get out the Marine Corps and they have an identity crisis and they spiral downward, right? Because you only have two options. Either you get better or you get worse. And luckily, the thing about the military, and this is an advice for anybody who's listening that's either about to transition out or did transition out, you need to get your mind to do something ASAP. You need to occupy yourself as soon as possible Because if you don't, you're gonna get depressed. You're gonna start reminiscing. You're gonna lose that brotherhood, that camaraderie, because that's what keeps you sane. It's not that the military and the Marine Corps is fun. It's just that, you're doing terrible things and you're doing tough things with people that you like, with your
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah.
That's how you build teams. And when I got out, I immediately got a position as a turbine technician that kept me occupied, kept me working, kept me growing. And luckily, I was surrounded by a bunch of other veterans. So it's like we were just Marines, just not in uniform. And now we're doing a different task as a team. So that's what kept me kind of in the mindset. So I was actually grateful for that. Other people, they become a security guard or they become, whatever it is, and then they start losing themselves. That's how you get those
Yeah.
identity crises,
So you get into this wind turbine thing, man, and like, what was it like climbing up those things? Did you have a fear of heights at all, or no?
Well, I'm an adrenaline junkie, right? That's why I enlisted in the Marines. I was like 17. So I'm an adrenaline junkie, and for me, I'm like, look, if I'm gonna do something different than the Marines, like the Marines, right? That's the best branch out of all branches. I like challenges. That's just me. And I said, well, if I'm gonna do something outside the Marine Corps, what can I do that's gonna be fun, but they pays well? It's gonna pay me for my time. And then I started seeing wind turbine technician, right? And the military had a program that helps people go from, it's called like boots to hard hats, right? And then I got into that, and I was in my early 20s, so my body was okay with it at the time. Makes sense? Just climbing these 300, 500 foot towers. Now, don't get me wrong, the first time, man, I was like, what did I get myself into? Like,
What do you wrapped around this, like around the pole?
yeah, so the way it works is you have this ladder, right? It's a straight ladder. And it's when you look up, it's just like it's just kind of scary. But then you wear a harness, and on these ladders, there's like a cable, and the cable goes from all the way top to the very bottom. And what you do is you have a harness. On your harness, you have a thing called the lat safe. The lat safe is attached to your D-ring, which is on your chest. You attach that lat safe to that cable. So when you climb, it allows you to climb. But if you fall, it latches onto that cable, so it holds you.
Did you ever fall?
No. I never fell. Thank God I never
You don't
fell.
want to test the latch ring or whatever it's called, right?
No, not at all. Because trust me, if when you start climbing that mic, you'll look down, you're like, I'm not even gonna try it.
So how did they get the cable to the top?
Yeah, so I was part of as a matter of fact, I was part of a lot of construction sites. So I was there for a lot of the sites that were from the started from the bottom all the way to the top, right? And the way that they do it is that it's called free climbing. Free climbing is you have this cable on you, and as you're climbing, you're latching on. Yeah, it's called pelican hooks. These pelican hooks, you climb, you attach to the ladder. You climb, you attach to the ladder, and you're climbing all these materials up with you. Makes sense? Now, when it comes to the actual cable itself, sometimes they're already on the ladder. They're already on the ladder itself before they erect them, or you take them from the top and you drop them. You start dropping the cable down from the top, from the top to the bottom.
But somebody's got to go up there without the cable attached.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but sometimes depending how the construction site is done, they'll erect everything first. And if there's no cable, it's called free climbing, what I was talking about with the pelican hook. But at the very top of the wind turbine, it's called the nacelle. That's like the head, the nacelle. There's an actual hoist. The hoist will go down. You have a button. You press the hoist down. They will attach all the materials. You hoist it back up, and then you just start falling everything down from the top down.
Does it get cold up there and windy?
Oh man, it's like if it's hot, it's a sauna. It is terrible. And if it's
it gets
cold,
hotter up high if it's hot out. Yeah.
it gets hot because it's like insulated.
Yeah.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like there's no fans, there's nothing, right? So
Yeah.
so you're sweaty. So imagine this, imagine
Wait a
climbing.
minute. Are you climbing up inside the thing or on the outside of it?
You climb from the inside.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Oh,
Yes.
okay.
You're insulated, but imagine this, Mike. Imagine you climbing this 300 foot or 500 foot towers, but you're sweaty. Your
Yeah.
fingers are sweaty. Your arms are sweaty, and you're just so sometimes you over grip just to like not fall. And then when it would get cold, oh man, it was like you would lose all feelings in your fingers.
Yeah.
You lose all feelings in your fingers. You lose all feelings in your toes. We would have to get hand warmers and feet warmers. And what happened is when you're climbing, and this will happen to some people, because you're climbing, it gets so cold, you lose feelings in your fingers, so you over grip. And there's some people that are somewhat afraid of heights and they lie on their resume, let's just put it like that, right? Just to get paid well.
Yeah.
And they go on those jobs and they get to the top and they freeze up. They lock. So imagine locking 300 foot up in the air and they just lock. And now we have to go rescue them.
Oh my God.
It's a whole process to rescue people. It puts a lot of people in danger because not only do you have to rescue this person, but if you fall, that's two people, that's two casualties.
And they have comms lined up, like you guys have a
Yeah.
radio or something.
Yeah, we have radios as we go up. There's someone at the top that has a radio. Someone is climbing has a radio. Someone at the bottom has a radio. So
Okay.
we're constant communication. You know,
How long did you do that for?
I did it for about close to 3 years. Close to
Okay.
3 years. Just climbing and just getting after it. I would, you know, it's crazy because I would climb about 3 towers a day, 6 days a week.
Okay.
That's all I was doing. And there was
Yeah.
times where I was in positions where I'm like, oh man, like one wrong step and I'm gone. Like this is it for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
How
but
did
I
you
had
know?
no time, you know?
Yeah. How did you know it was over? Like when you needed to get out.
No.
You were
Great
done.
question. The way, man, the way I feel like it was yesterday, you know, but because time flies, you know, but the
Yeah.
way that I felt it was over is when, you know, I started having conversations with those individuals in my industry, and in my business. And, you know, one of my mentors, he's 27 years old. You know, last month he crossed over $600,000 last month in business. He's only 27, $600,000. And his coach is only 29 and he made over $5 million, over $4 million last year in our business. And then when I had a conversation with this guy at the time, I was 25 and he was 25 at the time. And he was making well over like $250,000. And I was looking at him and I'm like, hold up, you're 25, I'm 25, but I'm doing this for money and you're doing that for money, but you seem much more happy. You have a family, you have time for yourself, and I don't. I'm working 60 hours a week and I don't have a social life. And that's when my ego, because I have a lot of ego, Mike. Let's just be honest. I mean, if you're gonna get into business, you got ego, right?
Yeah.
Ego's a
Yeah.
good thing
Yeah.
sometimes, but
Yeah.
ego is not your amigo all the time. And that's when I realized I had to question myself. And that's when it started slowly the matrix, like the ones and O's. I said, man, if he could do it, why can't I? What's so different between me and him? And he's actually a Navy veteran. And I said, and he was in the military. So okay. So when I went back to work, I had ego. So I didn't want it to be real. I wanted to be everything we had a conversation. I wanted to be fake. I wanted to be just be like, nah, this is just making that stuff up because what I'm doing, I made it. In my head, I thought I made it, you know? And then when I started
Wait a minute. How much were you making at the height of climbing?
at that time, I was making about $10,000 to $12,000 a month.
Okay.
As a
Okay.
winter
So 120, 144 a year, which isn't bad income, but you're working 60 hours and you're not really happy. No social life. Yeah.
I tell people all the time, what's the point of having what's money without time?
Yeah. Yeah. And then if you get into that field, you can always go back if it
Yeah.
doesn't work, right?
I tell people all the time, I said, look, your job, your 9 to 5, your that corporation, that it's not going nowhere. And
Right.
guess what? People are like a number. So the moment you leave, they're not gonna be like, oh my goodness, Mike's gone. Let's shut the company down.
Right.
It's over. They're
Yeah.
gonna be like, next in line.
Yeah.
You know, who's
Yeah.
next? So for
And,
me,
and how hard is it to make 10 or 12 grand a month in doing what you switched to?
you basically have to not have a life.
No. I'm saying
oh.
in the new line of work.
Oh, in the new line of work.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
I was gonna say in the wind turbine. In
no.
the 5, I was like, hey, because I had people who were family men. They had kids, they had wives, and they were missing birthdays. They were missing dance recitals for the kids. They was missing sporting
Yeah.
events. They were missing all that, and I felt
Yeah.
bad. You could see it in their face, like they were depressed at work. And but yes, in the new line of work, it's super super simple. I mean, you can have a conversation with one individual and make 10 grand. You
Yeah.
know, I remember I made over $30,000 helping one client. It took
Yeah.
1 hour, one
Yeah.
hour speaking over Zoom with
Yeah.
internet, with my fan on and AC. Made over
Yeah.
$30,000. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
that's almost 3 months worth of work that when I was in the tower, I was sweating. I was hot. I had grease and oil in places grease and oil shouldn't be. And now I made it in 1 hour. So I
Right.
said, that's it. I'm going all in. I remember when I made $30,000 in 1 hour and I was doing it part-time when I first started part-time, which I want to tell people. People say I don't have time. People always say, well, I just don't have time. Well, guess what? If you don't have time now, when will you ever have time? So I made time.
No,
Uh,
but when they say that, they're right. Like whatever you say is true,
oh yeah, 1,000%.
right?
Yeah,
Like I don't have time. Yeah, you're right. Well, stop. If you stop saying that, you'll start having time.
no, 100%.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
that comes down to mindset. Again, a lot of people live in fear and scarcity. There's scarcity and abundance. Scarcity mindset is what you're gonna lose. Abundance mindset is what am I gonna gain? So for me, I was like, no, look, I'm working from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day. I work from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And I'm climbing 3 towers a day, 6 days a week. I don't have a break. And I said, you know what? They say your 9 to 5 pays your bills, but your 5 to 9 is what sets you free. And I realized when I would get off work, I would take 1 hour for myself to eat, to shower, to do what I got to do to just kind of relax and decompress. And then I get right to it. I know that I would put about 3 to 4 hours every single night into business, whether it's self-developing, whether it's reading, whether it's mindset, whether it's running appointments, whether it's establishing my skill sets in sales, in communication, in finance. And then on the weekends, what I would do is I would overbook my calendar. On like Sundays I would just completely book my calendar back to back to back to back meetings, and I'd be exhausted because come Monday, 5 a.m. I had to get back to work. I'd have to wake up at 3 in the morning, drive 2 hours to the site, and it was constant of this. And that's when the discipline comes in. That's what the military taught me, right, Mike? When I say I'm super grateful, the military taught me delayed gratification, discipline. Other people just don't have that patience.
Yeah,
Um,
patience is huge, man.
they don't have that. They feel like they get
Yeah.
uncomfortable a little bit. It's a little bit of pain, and all of a sudden they don't want to get after it. And but when I started making about, I remember my first paycheck, I made $200, and I said, I mean it's not life changing money, but I said I just made $200 on my own. And that's when I was like, this is it. I got addicted. And then I started making 3 grand, then 5 grand, then 9 grand, then 10 grand, then 15 grand. And then when I made 30,000 in 1 hour, I remember I told myself, if this business starts getting to my main income, I'm gonna quit. But then I kind of, I was bluffing a little bit, because then when it happened, I was like, oh, this is real.
Yeah,
And when it
yeah.
got to that point, I said, I gotta make a decision. I was torn. I was torn from what society had told me was the right way to be, to what my future hold. And I mean, we know entrepreneurship and business, Mike, is not guaranteed, right? Um, at the end of the day, you just never know what can happen. And then finally, I had a conversation with a couple people, and I was okay. And then one day, I went to work, and my boss at the time, he said the right thing on the wrong day, if you know what I mean. He just said the right thing on the wrong day, and I just made $30,000. And when he said something to me, that's when I looked at my bank account, and I said, I'm gone. I'm out of here. So I fired my boss, and then I just took a plane ticket. I was up in New York at the time, came back to Texas, went MIA, just deleted all my managers, and just went into business. That's it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the rest is history.
How were you when you were doing it part-time? How did you get leads and appointments?
Yeah, so very, very simple. The way, number one, marketing, social media, conversations, self-acquisition. It's kind of like, how realtors, no one, it unfortunately doesn't say realtor on your forehead, or doesn't say financial professional, financial broker on your forehead. So you have to have conversations. The only difference is in my industry, the products and services we have, it's called common sense closing. Today in America, unfortunately, buying a home is not, it's kind of difficult nowadays for most Americans, right? I mean, today in America, you have to make $100,000 a year to comfortably own a home. And the statistic now, new homeowners, the age of new homeowners is 38 now. It's only going up. So for realtors, you can't just go to someone, it's your neighbor, or you can't just go to your local Walmart, have a conversation with someone, and be like, hey, you want to buy a house? They're like, brother, sister, I can barely afford my groceries. But with my conversation, what I'm teaching people is how to retire properly, create pensions, college plans for kids, wills and trusts, the legacy plans, how to pay less in taxes, how to grow your money smartly, how to budget. That's all something those are not wants. Those are needs. Make sense? So
Yeah.
for what the value that I was propositioning to people was easier to have a conversation with. So self-acquisition, marketing, social media. I was speaking to a lot of my friends and families, co-workers, and eventually I rebranded myself. I went from the Marine guy, the Marine that just drinks beer and drinks whiskey and just climbs on turbines, to the financial professional helping people retire. And I got a lot of no's. But no's, I gotta tell people this. No is not a no. No is just not right now, depending on what you're propositioning.
Or they
So a
don't
lot
know something.
exactly, they just don't know something. So a lot of the first no's then made me more money in the future. I had one
Yeah,
guy who
yeah.
told me no straight up to me. Straight, I was like 2 weeks into being licensed, and I knew what I had. Remember you told Mike, you sometimes you feel crazy when you know what you have. So I knew what I had, and I talked to him about it. He said no. He was in his 50s. Okay, cool. 2 months later, he called me. He said, "Hey, you still doing that thing? You still have access to those tools and whatnot?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Can I talk to you?" "For sure. Let's have I don't hold grudges. For me, Mike, I don't take this
Right, of
personally. Let's have
course.
a conversation." We sat down. We created a retirement plan for him. He was so happy. He then gave me 12 referrals in one day. So the next
Jeez.
day, I helped 12 people with their finances, and I made over 8 grand in that one day.
Yeah, yeah.
So what if two
That's
months
good.
ago I'd be like, nah, let me hold the grudge. That guy said no to me.
Of
Nah,
course.
you know what I mean? So
Yeah, nah. So, all right, let's shift this as we wind down here. What's going on now? Obviously, the market tanked this week because of the
yeah.
tariffs and everything that's going on with that. And what are your thoughts on everything that's going on?
Yeah, so there's two things about it, right? And again, it comes back to the scarcity and abundance mindset. Now, for people who are younger, there's a lot more ways to use what's happening right now to your advantage. Straight up. I mean, number one, everything obviously things are getting cheaper to get into the market, right? So it's what Trump is doing is a chess move. It's just chess. things are becoming cheaper, meaning more people have the ability to jump into the market than before. It's like he's taking things out of Wall Street's hand and putting it back into Main Street's hand, but it's slowly but surely. It's like when the shoulder's out of pocket and you put it back into pocket, it hurts at first, but it's needed because then it feels better. So number one, it's easy to get into the market. Number two, with the services that I show people how to do is I show people how to index in the market, meaning how can you get all the upside but not get affected by the downside? A lot of my clients right now, they're not losing any money. $0, including my own accounts. We're losing zero money. But when the market comes back up, which it will, because it's just cyclical, and they're gonna get all the gains. We have a couple clients who are getting 19% rate of return, 20% rate of return, 40% rate of return because of the type of services that I provide that most people don't know. Only the wealthy know about. And then if you're older, this is where I come in. What I was telling you about, Mike. A lot of people are older. They just coasted all their life. All they did was save and work, and they invested in traditional retirement accounts. And now their nest egg is being beat up. So for them, it's about showing them how to get their money out of the market and put it somewhere where it can create an actual retirement plan. And we call that strategic rollouts. So strategic rollouts is what help people who are a little bit older protect their nest egg. Like I'm working with a lady right now. She's 65 years old. She's a sweetheart, great person. But after working all her life, she's 65. She only managed to save up only $130,000 her entire life. That's all she has to her name now, $130,000. And she's a sweetheart, but now we're having conversations to put in the right tool, to put in the right mindset and in the right avenue where now she's going to get a pension that's going to be great for her in the next, like, maybe 10 years,
Right. So I had another question on that. What was it? When it comes to you're talking to people and damn, I lost that thought. It was a good one.
So I kind of just show people like, look, right now, everything's about opportunity. Adversity is just equal and opposite opportunity. That's all adversity is. And right now people are going through adversity, but luckily that's why I'm licensed and I have the tools to show people, look, this is where you are. Doesn't matter what's happening here. We're going to get you here.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. And I remember the question. So, some people put things into a tax deferred situation, 401ks, all these different things, right?
Yeah.
If the IRS goes away, do you think that the IRS is going to go away and they're going to start having the external revenue service and really get rid of the internal revenue service? And if it does, do all those people that were doing tax deferred strategies now really get a big, huge gain because they don't have to pay taxes on the stuff that they thought they were going to have to pay taxes on?
Yeah. Well, number one, I hope so. Right.
Yeah. That'd be amazing.
I hope so. It'd be great. It'd be amazing. But until then, we just don't know. Right. So until then, we might as well just use all the resources and applications we have. And if that does come about, even better.
Yeah.
Better, because for all the people, like, if we're waiting for that to happen, I hope it does. But there's still ways to put your money in tax advantage strategies. Because tax deferred accounts, they're just traditional accounts and they were made to keep people down. That's all it was. I tell people, it's like, does it make any sense to put your money in an account where you have no control over it? It's twice as easy to lose, twice as hard to gain, and then you're gonna have to pay higher taxes in the future on an uncertain amount. Right now, the average retirement account balance back in 2023, according to Vanguard's analysis of over 5 million plans, was only like $123,000. $123,000 the average retirement account balance by 65. That's according to Vanguard. Most of the retirement accounts between 60 and 69 is only $180,000. That's after taxes. Most people today live to what, 75 or 80 with modern medicine?
Yeah.
So you're telling me you worked all your life. You get to 65. Uncle Sam bills you. Uncle Sam taxes you, takes a big chunk of your money. You have this one little check, hopefully of $180,000. Because when I sit with clients, I have clients in their 50s and 60s. They're barely at 80K. They're barely at 60K because people pull out early because of medical bills and expenses. So now you get this one check of $180,000. You're 65 years old. Can you retire comfortably? I ask my clients, can you retire comfortably? They say no. I said, if you can't retire, what are you going to do? They say, I got to go back to work. I said, do you want to be in your 60s and 70s working? They're like, absolutely not. And then I say, when you're working, what are you earning? They said an income. When you're earning an income, what are you paying? Well, taxes, income tax. I said, was that done on purpose or accident? And I just sit there. And then everybody says, on purpose.
Do you think it's the right mindset to want to retire though? Because to me, I feel like myself, I'll never stop working.
Yeah.
Like I think people that stop working die. So like you should find something you like to do. Not everybody's like that though, but like you should find something you like to do that you want to do the rest of your life. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know, man. I mean,
when I say retire, I don't mean be a couch potato. I mean buy back your time.
Yeah.
Retire and buy back your time. Like, if you want to because most people's passions and dreams aren't being killed by just bills and debt.
Yeah.
You know, right now I have a client right now of mine that he loves making movies. He loves writing novels. He loves art, but he's constantly worried about the next bill. What you were talking about,
Yeah. Yeah.
living the week to week, the month to month, and he can never really tap into his creative side because he's always stressed out, you know? So for
Yeah.
me, when I say retire, it's like put yourself in a position where you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor, where one day you know that you're gonna have your time back. Hey, you want to be at the beach at Tuesday afternoon with the sunscreen on your nose, hanging out and enjoying the wind? Great. You want to be, you know, maybe building a business that's yours? Great. You want to, you know, start painting like Bob Ross? Go after it. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But don't get stuck at a job, because if we look at these big corporations, these big chains like Walmart, HEB, Lowe's, you know, all these big companies, who do you see there? It's two types of people. Either young people who are just getting work experience, and older people who are there because they have to be there, not out of choice, out of necessity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had coworkers, Mike, when I was working these turbines, I had coworkers in their 60s. And when I started, you know, getting out of the matrix, I'm like, can I ask you a question, brother? Like, why are you still here? And their excuse was, well, you know, I got to get a workout in. I got to keep myself occupied. I just got to get after, so keep these joints moving. And I said, well, why can't you just get a gym membership? And then it would get quiet and awkward.
Yeah.
And that's, I knew, like, that was their excuse. That's how they,
Yeah.
you know, made it make sense to them.
Edgar, where can people go deeper with you? Want to know more about this stuff?
Yeah, so what I would say, the best place is my Instagram. The best place, the Instagram right now at Zavala_Edgar25. And from there, you know, just DM me. Let me know that you came here from, you know, that one agency, that one podcast, and we'll go from there. We have resources. We have, you know, they say your network is your net worth, right? So the moment you have a conversation with me, guess what? You're gonna have access to people who are making 6-7 figures, like it's a normal Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
So Instagram is the best place to find me, Mike.
Well, you are that one, Edgar. Thank you for being that one. And I appreciate your time here and the opportunity to have a relationship with you and attach myself to your mission, man. I appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me, Mike. I really do. I'm super grateful. Thank you.
All right, man. My pleasure. Hang tight while I wrap this up, folks. Thank you so much for being here on the That One podcast with your boy C-Roc and Edgar Zavala, sharing what makes him that one. Keep coming back. Make sure while you're in your favorite podcast platform right now, make sure you hit subscribe right now or follow. I think there's a follow button and a subscribe button. Make sure you do one of those so you can get the alerts that when we have these amazing guests on here sharing this amazing information, that you get to benefit from it. Until next time, it's your boy C-Roc signing off. Be that one.